welcome to Be an Artist. I'm here with Chris Freeman today. He's the photographer who's responsible for most of the pictures on any of my social media recently, because he's taking pictures at every event. And I thought we're going to sit down today and hear his story. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
I was really interested in your story because we spoke about how you came from a finance background and then you started becoming a photographer. And a lot of people, I think there's a stigma that artists have to be broke and finance people have to be boring. So it's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about your path, how you escaped the boredom of the city. How did you get started in photography?
So, how I got started with photography goes all the way back to sort of when I was in the Scouts of all places. So my Scout leader was a Fleet Street press photographer, um, and he used to do loads of pictures of this. Every event that we ever did, he took a picture, and it would end up in the local paper. And then when I sort of finished Scouts and was starting work, or sort of between end of school and starting work, I used to go on photo assignments with him. So I didn't have anything else to do, and he needed some company. So we'd drive around and do various shoots, which was great. I've been to RAF Manston and watched Air Force One land and stuff like that. This is back in the day where there was no security. You could blag your way into anything, basically. So I picked up a lot from him as to how that happened. And actually, I've got something to show you in a second. Once I started work, it was during the winter of discontent in '79. So it was always train strikes. I couldn't get to work. And he drove to work, so he used to give me a lift. And I ended up, he jumped out. We got to some traffic lights one day, and he said, so get out the car. I went, what? He said, just hold this sign. So I stood on the side of the road, held this sign. He got out the driver's seat, took one picture, and we all got back in the car. And then 20 years later, it appeared on the back of the Times.
That's amazing.
So that's me standing on the side of the road with a sign saying "City, please," during the winter of discontent. And it took 20 years to turn up. I was sitting at my desk one morning. I don't get the Times. I was at my desk one morning. My phone just started ringing off the hook with people ringing and going, "What were you doing in 1979?" I went, it's that picture. So that sort of got me interested in photography. And then over the years, I've always had a camera with me, sort of big ones to start off with. I used to rock climb and go mountain walking, so did pictures of that. Then I sort of moved into triathlon and did pictures wherever we sort of travelled around to. So we used to travel all over the continent doing races. So I'd always sort of try and do a few pictures. And then when the kids came along, that's every week that's taking pictures. I think I took a roll of film every week for about 2 or 3 years after the kids were born. And then just doing travel photography, every time we went on holiday or did a big trip, doing photos of that. And then as the kids got older and did sport, I moved into doing more sports photography. So, rugby to start off with, which they both played for a while, and they both rode. So I started taking pictures of that, which isn't easy because rowing boats are long, thin things. Not the easiest things, and it always rains. It's always miserable, cold. So I did that, and my youngest did really well at sort of rowing and ended up at Henley. So I used to go sort of virtually every week and do pictures. So that sort of where my journey started and how I really got into photography. And then I've always wanted to do more artistic side of photography. It's all the sort of 1950s French photographers who did the black and white, very atmospheric, Henry Cartier-Bronson, Robert Dessous, and that the like of them. That's, I sort of hanker after that, and being able to take those pictures that sort of capture a moment or a person and what they look like, and a bit of their soul as well. So getting, it's not just about taking the picture. There's a load of great pictures out there, and there's far better photographers than I am. But it's about capturing that moment and having a look and a style to the photographs, which is why I've sort of got two Instagram accounts. One which has just got my black and white on it, and one which has got sort of my more colourful stuff on it. Mm-hmm. And they sort of go hand in hand, but it's almost what I like presenting and what I like to show is that those black and white ones, because I feel that they've sort of got something, hopefully are getting something about them that people can connect to, and people look at rather than just go, oh, that's a nice picture, and skip over it. So that's sort of my journey through, and I suppose it was interesting. What happened is my son had finished school, he moved on to uni. I tried sort of a year of doing roving photography and trying to break into that, and I had a mild amount of success, but it was quite challenging. As I say, 8 hours spent on a riverbank in the pouring rain, in the freezing cold, with no to talk to. It was enjoyable, but it's hard. And then the winter before COVID broke, the weather was awful, so all the rowing events got cancelled. There was just nothing going on at all, and I started to take pictures around Brick Lane. Mm-hmm. And also, I've always wanted to dress a bit more flamboyantly, and I sort of brought the two together, and that sort of worked. There was a degree of intention there, but there was also a degree of, I'll see what happens, and just go with the flow, and it started to work. So I started sort of down Brick Lane, especially Brick Lane Vintage Market. Got chatting to people. They I stood out, so they'd want to talk to me. I'd start talking to them about doing photos, and it sort of built from there. And one guy in particular, a guy called Coco, who's really flamboyant. He's an amazing guy. He worked for Vivienne Westwood. He's an artist. He's been on the clubbing scenes in the 80s, etc. All of that. And so I did some photos of him. Sorry, just get a couple. And he introduced me to various people, but then he said, "Oh, have you heard of the Colour Walk?" I went, "No." And he said, "Oh, you need to find this. I think there's an event going on." So I looked it up, and a lady called Mayway, who's she's just incredibly well dressed. She just has this amazing style, and she was having a a little event off of Baker Street. And so I looked it up and I booked some tickets. And I went up, I booked for the Friday. So I turned up in Baker Street in the afternoon on Friday, expecting this event, and it hadn't been set up yet. And so I got chatting to her and she said, well, you can come back tomorrow. And I said, well, do you need some hands setting up? And she went, well, if you haven't got anything else to do. So I spent the Friday afternoon doing the setup for them, did a few pictures, just the setup, and then went back on the Sunday and did a load more pictures. And everybody, if you look on my Instagram account, Ketsugi Street, the very first pictures are all pictures of either Coco or that event. And everybody's really dressed up. You haven't seen dressing up until you've seen the people from the colour walk. And that was sort of the first time I sort of dressed up as well, and was really out there. I think I ended up in a pair of denim dungarees and a green satin blouse. And
that's how I know you.
Yeah.
So it's funny that there was a different version of you before.
Yeah. So if you look at my finance world, if you look at my Instagram accounts, it always starts with I spent 40 years in a grey suit, and it's sort of breaking free from that,
mm-hmm.
and then really pushing that artistic side, so that all that everything you have to sort of keep boxed up to a certain extent because you work in the city. I just opened that box and gone and said, right, okay, well let's see what I can do, because I always knew I sort of wanted to retire from the city. I didn't want to retire from work.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to start to move from one thing to the next. And your opening thing about sort of you're rich in the city, poor as an artist, I think there's a degree of truth to that. I haven't been paid for very much in the photographic world as yet, but then I badge myself as sort of a trainee, if you like, doing work experience. This is my work experience and how I want to sort of develop and learn as I go forward.
So we spoke about when we spoke on the phone prior to this chat, that it's funny because we never associate the city with art, yet the Financial Times weekend edition has the biggest art section of any newspaper out there. Like, I've been buying it for years just because all the art gets covered there, from theater to books to exhibitions. It's all in the Financial Times, which is kind of ironic, isn't it?
Well, I think I've been very lucky and been on a lot of corporate things, and a lot of the big banks and accountancy firms actually sponsor an awful lot of art.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a high-end art, so it's all the Tate Modern or the Tate or Royal Academy or whatever. So there is a lot of art in the city, and there are actually a number of organisations that have their own art curators. So I worked for a company called Robert Fleming, who had the biggest collection of Scottish art in the world in their vaults or on the walls. Every office that we had all had Scottish art in it. So there is a definite appreciation for art in the city, more so than you'd probably realise. But I think it tends to be that the higher level art,
Hmm.
the safe stuff. There isn't. I don't think there is as much support for up and coming artists in the city, because it's all about the prestige to a certain extent, and it's where you can take your clients to, etc. But there is it is altruistic as well. It is, they are trying to put some money into the arts and support them. But it's there, but I think more could be done. A lot of art is only in client meeting rooms. It's not in back offices or trading floors or anything like that. So it's there, and I think there's actually more artistic people than people realise, but people don't really share too much in the city as to what they do outside of work or what they want to do. So I think there's a lot buried away, and there's probably a lot of talent there that's untapped.
Do you think that sometimes it's a case of people like fearing that they're not regarded as like focused on their job if they would share like a hobby that they would pursue like passionately?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, I heard a story the other day of a guy that was he's an accountant in a in a punk band, but has never told anybody. Nobody he has ever worked with knows he's in a punk band, because of the what people may think. And actually, I think it's counterproductive.
Hmm.
I think if more people started to sort of say what they did outside of work, as well as, I think companies could tap into that and understand people more. It's funny because there's a lot written about work-life balance, and you meant to spend more time at home, but and enjoy life more. But it's almost then nobody wants to hear about it. You're going, well, how's that work then? It just seems perverse that on one level people are saying I want work-life balance, but on the other level don't want to talk about it or bring that other element that you do at home to the office. So, but I think it will slowly change.
Yeah.
I think youngsters today will start to change things for the better. I think there's a bit of balance there. Because
It would be interesting to dig into like people's lives, like, anonymous research or something like that. Like how many of you secretly do art on the side and keep up your little profile of suit wearing serious
yeah,
bank like on the outside. I feel like it's almost a trophy to work 80 hours a week and sleep under your desk. So like it's like it's hard, um I guess, when people say no, I put myself first and I'm gonna do what I need to become a complete person.
yeah, and I think this is where the sort of there's a difficulty with the city, and not so much the perception, but there is a reality. I have done the 80-100-hour weeks. I have worked through the night a couple of times, and that's why you get paid the money, because you are, there is a degree of selling your soul, and there is on some of the things you work on, and it's probably a bit like working in the arts as well. If you're doing a production, there is a deadline and it has to happen, and no matter how much work it is, you've got to get it finished by that deadline.
Mhm.
It's a bit like opening on opening night. I suspect that in the art world, people work crazy hours to get stuff done for the opening night. And it's the same in the city. You have to work crazy hours to deliver something to a deadline. And nothing concentrates the mind as, you know, losing lots of money if it doesn't happen.
Even if it's not your money.
Yeah, even though it's not your money, but you know, companies do fail because something's not got delivered. So there's that pressure, but you've not got the reward that you've got in the artistic world of it being creative. So you've done all that work, you have actually created something, but it's something that nobody is ever going to see except for the people that you've worked with. So all you've got is the paycheck at the end of the month, which is, don't get me wrong, is very nice, but from a rewards point of view, and this is where I think that sort of the art and finance world can probably learn from one another, is you haven't got that satisfaction. There's no, it's not tangible. Whereas if you do a production or take a photo or paint a picture, it's there. You know, no matter how good or bad it is, you've produced it. It's there. You might, yeah. And I've got photos and go, yeah, no, that's not as good as I thought it would be. And others, I thought, yeah, I'm chuffed with that. But that's ticked a box for me. You know, I'm proud of that, what I've produced. So it's sort of bringing that together, and to a certain extent, it's also the flamboyance element as well. Is, you know, everybody wears a grey suit in the city, men and women. It's, you know, I sat in Waterloo Station about a month or two back, and there's a sort of a mezzanine floor, and I was watching everybody get off the trains, and no word of a lie, it was, I'd pick an outfit. So you'd go, right, okay, white shirt, black trousers, and I went, right, I got to find two or three of those. No, I could find 5, 6, 7.
Wow.
Everybody was exactly the same style, etc. And I started sort of nuancing it, going, all right, okay, you know, has to have a black bag as well. Well, that was easy as well. It's just like everybody dresses the same, everybody looks identical. There's no personality left.
Wow.
You know, when you look at people. So it's, you know, some of what I'm doing is, you know, from what I learned from the colour walk and how I've always wanted to sort of dress, etc. And right, okay, well, let's challenge that. You know, let's put some stuff out there. Let's sort of push the boundaries, and see where it goes to.
So if you were the shirt that you're wearing right now, if you wore that in the office, what would happen? Like, let's say you walk into the building, what would happen?
What would happen? I think it's, yeah, it would it would be the sole topic of conversation for probably months to come. And actually, I've just done a photo shoot for a photographer who's got an exhibition coming up in Broadgate, and I'm in something like this, which is going to be projected on the side of the UBS building. And I know from speaking to the legal counsel that I used to work with, that she's bringing, because she introduced me to the photographer, she's bringing some people from work, so that I used to work with. So it'll be interesting to see what reaction I get when they see that picture.
Maybe they come back next time also with like an extravagant outfit because they're like, oh, one of us jumped off the bandwagon, we gotta do it too.
Well, that's what I'm hoping will happen. Um, I think fashion sort of hit a dead end. Um, you know, you can buy the same clothes now that you could 30 years ago. Yeah, I've got stuff in my wardrobe that's nearly 30 years old, and you wouldn't know that it was 30 years old because nothing's changed. So hopefully that can sort of start to break it down. I think it's not going to happen immediately, but I think post lockdown, I think hopefully people will look at life in a bit more colourful way. Go, well, life's short. Let's just enjoy things.
Yeah. YOLO a bit more.
Yeah.
So you told me about this experience where you were in the office and you had a bunch of pictures printed out on your desk.
Yeah.
And your colleagues were like, oh, those are really good. Who took them? And they couldn't even believe that you were the one.
No, because I think people don't realise that people have other talents. And so the picture John posted to the Jazz website, I posted on my Facebook, and somebody I used to work with, that I'm friends with, she just put a sort of a wow comment on it, because, and she's seen a few of my pictures already, but people don't realise that you do other things. But hopefully it's also because the pictures are good.
Pictures are good.
But they're getting there, I think. I think there's I sort of developing, the more I do, I'm sort of getting, I'm understanding how much I can push things with regards to the capabilities of the camera and what I can do and different shots. And then the more you take, the sort of your hit rate of what is a good picture goes up. So I tend to take quite a lot of pictures when I do a shoot. And the proportion that are not fuzzy, out of focus, rubbish composition, etc., is slowly going down. I'm still not where I want to be on that level, but it's slowly getting there.
But I guess it's also hard with because for us you took a lot of pictures of improvised movement.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how I'm gonna move. So how are you supposed to time it?
Can I be frank? You're a nightmare to take a picture. because you are so fluid in your movements that there isn't a point that you pause, or very, very few. So you can go 10 minutes without there actually being a pause in any of your movements. And I can't even anticipate where you're going to be in the frame. But I've started to get used to that, and I've started to work out ways of working with it. So when I did sports photography, you'd think the sports was similar, but in sports, and say like rowing that I used to take pictures of, there is always a point, and it may be only for a fraction of a second, but everything stops. So when they're doing a stroke, they sort of stroke through, and then it stops as they go for the next one, whereas yours is just completely fluid. But you do, that's why, to a certain extent, and it was dark at the Hundreds gallery. I've completely went the other way and just slowed the shutter speed down, so you just appeared as a blur.
I really love those
Yeah,
because it almost
and I
doesn't
think
feel because everybody else is pretty solid.
yeah,
And the only reason I know it's me is because I know I was wearing a black morph suit. So I know if there's like a black cloud somewhere
yeah.
from here to there, I know it's me. But it looked really cool. It's like that's how I come back when I die, like as a ghost, like just a black cloud in a jazz event.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do that again, but more in a structured way. So even though you're blurred, there's sort of like there's some very dark black. There's some black patches, like a black diamond that you sort of form. If we did that again and did it more structured, well lit, and on a tripod, etc., so there's no camera shake, those diamonds would look solid. So it would look like a set of diamonds dancing.
That's amazing. Yeah, we
So
have to.
and this is what I mean about my photography and what I'm trying to achieve is I'm not necessarily trying to take a crystal clear, perfect landscape picture. What I'm trying to do is capture the essence of a performance or a person.
Mm-hmm.
That's I want it to be have an emotional aspect to it as well as a visual.
Mm-hmm.
My sort of criteria for pictures is they want to hold you. You want to look at them, and you'll go back and look at them, and not just sort of jump across it, as it were. And that's what I want to try and achieve. I think it's got a way to go yet, but hopefully we'll eventually get there.
That's amazing. Did you ever do any like courses to learn which camera you need to use or to learn editing techniques or anything like
No, and I probably do need to do some sort of tidying up sort of courses. I think from a camera point of view, the cameras are a tool to take the picture. I find what a lot of photographers are bogged down in is the camera, not the picture. So one of my sort of pet peeves, and as a photographer this sounds a bit odd, but to a certain extent is some other photographers, and another reason sort of to dress up, etc., is you get a lot of photographers that wear black, hang around on street corners and just look really dodgy. And I want to break that mold. I don't want to be like, that's not why I take pictures. And also people will see me taking pictures, or other photographers will see me taking pictures, and the first thing they ask me is about the camera. And well, yeah, it's a nice camera, but sort of two things. One, I'm probably taking pictures a at a time, so you're breaking my concentration on taking pictures. And why aren't you taking pictures with your camera? And two, they're not talking about the pictures; they're talking about the camera. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that's sort of the way I approach things. Is it wouldn't matter whether I had a phone, a cheapo film camera, or whatever. It's about what you take with the picture. It's the picture that comes out. And I think, whilst I haven't done any courses, I've read on the bookshelf behind me. There's sort of 2 rows of photographic books from
Wow.
over the years. There's a load more downstairs. Every gallery I go past, either art gallery or photographic exhibition, I will go in and have a look. There's some, I've mentioned the French photographers, people like Luie, which probably a lot of people haven't heard of. Luie was a New York photographer that used to do crime scenes. So he used to tune into the police radio, and if there was a car crash or a shooting or whatever, he'd go and photograph it. a lot of his photographs are, by their nature, done at night. So they're not perfect, and he had he had one of those big old cameras as well. But because of it's the subject matter that draws you in, not necessarily the quality of the picture. And there's a famous one by Francis Capra, shot during the Spanish Civil War, which is a Spanish soldier getting at the point of being shot. The whole thing's blurred, obviously, because he's taking pictures in a war zone. But that sort of makes the picture. So that's sort of my inspiration, and that's where I learned from. Is actually looking at the pictures, not necessarily the technical aspect. I've been around photographers who have talked about how the picture falls off at the end, and it's not quite 100% crisp in this zone or that zone. And they're going, life's too short. And don't get me wrong, there is a requirement for that, and they are far better photographers than I am. But that's not what I'm after. That's not what drives me. Also on the editing, I have a limit of a minute per picture. That's the most I will edit a picture. So I do download everything. I will save the original. I may edit the color version, and then I'll convert it to black and white. Do some tweaks on contrast, mainly the blacks and the whites and the highlights, and that will be it. I have started to play around more and sort of pump them up a bit, but only occasionally. I think you can get into spending more time editing than you do taking pictures, and editing takes a while anyway. So for a day shooting, probably do 2 days editing. So if you start over editing, you'll be up to 3 or 4 days. So if you're trying to capture things, if you want to be out there taking pictures, you don't want to be spending 4 days editing them. That's your week gone, isn't it? That's sort of 5 days. You've only got 2 other days to do anything. And it goes back to sort of what I learned from John, my old scout leader, who's the press photographer. We'd come back from an assignment, he'd go in the dark room, he'd have everything developed within about 20 minutes, and it'd be on the wire out to the other newspapers. So we need dodge and burn and everything, but 20 minutes for entire 2 or 3 rolls of film, pick one picture and get it, write a copy on the bottom and get it out. It's that quick. I'm more of a press photographer from my approach,
Mhm.
from learning from that, rather than sort of a very dedicated photographer who's getting every pixel right in the right exposure, etc.
Mhm.
So
I think it also depends like how you want to see yourself, because you want to see yourself to document moments.
yeah,
Whereas somebody that sees themselves as like a fine arts photographer, he probably is the kind of person who takes one picture and then spends like 3 weeks editing that one picture. Like,
yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's some fantastic stuff out there that's done that way, and very successfully. But I haven't got that degree of patience.
did you ever
So,
learn how to edit, how to develop film yourself?
um, yes, I did. I did actually do a night course years ago, doing uh, black and white film and then developing it, which was good, and I enjoyed that. Um, but that is messy, and yeah, it's not overly expensive to do, um, but it's just one of those things. It's another piece of kit. It's more. I think if you have more time, then, and it might be something I do in the future, just to bring a different aspect. So because you can pick up that kit quite cheaply these days.
All right. But you need a separate room, right?
Yeah, you need a dark room. Again, back to John Fleet's. He used to develop. He used to um, make a dark room in a public toilet. Don't ask, but yeah, needs must. Yeah, so it's doable anywhere basically. But yeah, you in an ideal world you'd have a separate room with with its own water supply and everything like that, and be completely dark.
When I met you, you just had an exhibition going in somewhere in Hoxton in this pub that I forgot the name, Siegfried, some
GG's.
GG's.
Yeah.
Um, how did that go? Did you get any like response from that?
No, not well. It was more of a sort of installation, I suppose, rather than a exhibition. But it's still there, and they want some more pictures. They want two large pictures to go up. Um, so yeah, that's gone well. They definitely like the pictures, and I probably need to go back and sort of put a little name plaque up, because there's no credit at the moment, which I thought there was going to be put up. But yeah, no, that was good. It's nice to have that acceptance that something's good enough to go in on a wall in a bar. I suppose the other thing that we're not touched on is how that all came about.
Oh yeah.
So we mentioned sort of Poco and the colour walk, and then basically I just used to wander around town and sort of chat to people and go in galleries and stuff. And I'd been to an exhibition called Mars and Beyond at the barge house behind the Oxo Tower, and I'd done a couple of pictures and I had a chat to the guy. Anyway, I was walking past from work one evening and just stopped by, and I said, "Oh," I got chatting to the guy again because I'd sent him some pictures, and he says, "Well, it's our closing night tomorrow. Do you want to come along?" I went, "Well, yeah." I mean, it's the first time anybody had ever asked me to do anything, so but yeah, that would be great. So I always sort of warm up doing other photos, and that day I went up to Portobello Market, and did just wandered around taking some pictures of the market, etc. And on the way back, because it was just as COVID was biting, I I think it was actually the last weekend before lockdown. That's how close it was. I think lockdown was on the Monday or the Tuesday. And I'd sort of dressed up in my lively style as well. And I thought, I'm not going to catch the tube. I don't fancy going on the tube with, this is early days. So I thought, I don't want to catch a virus or whatever. So I walked back through Soho. And to my point about stopping in every gallery I walked past, just at the end of the name of the street, I was just walking through Soho and I saw the shop and it had some lively stuff in it. So I thought, I'll wander in there, and I could see some stuff in the back as well. So I wandered in, and Trix had some pictures up from I forget who he had now, Jeremy and a couple of others. I was then met a few weeks later, but he had some pictures up, and I got talking to him, and he liked my camera, and I showed him some of the pictures I'd shot in the morning. I showed him my very early Instagram account, which had the colour walk people on it. He went, "Oh, I like those," and he gave me his card. And then I went off and did the Mars and Beyond, and I gave him a ring a couple of weeks later and got talking, and then lockdown started to happen. And he said, I was going up to town anyway because for work I had to go into the office. So I was doing photos around Brick Lane, deserted Brick Lane, which was lovely. The light in the early lockdown was amazing, because I used to get up there very early in the morning. I used to drive up. I used to go and do some shots at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning, and the light was like you'd get in the Mediterranean. It was pure, crisp, no pollution, nothing. It was just amazing. And I got chatting to Trix, and he was trying to build up his artist base. So we ended up, as lockdown started to lift, going around and taking photos of his artists. So we'd bowl up at some poor artist's house or something. And actually our first one was Orally. I can't remember where we went. It was North London somewhere. And we met outside a pub and shot her in the street, and her drawing and stuff in the street, which is terrific. There's some great pictures from that. And then just started to do other artists, and it sort of built from there. So, which is why, that's how I met Gwen and yourself. And it's just sort of built up. And I think that's something for other photographers who are looking to break into something, is just that you just need to go out there. One, take lots of pictures, but two, just talk to every single person you meet. Just never know what connections you'll make. And what's funny is all the connections I've sort of made, I'm then starting to find that they're connecting through other people that I know, but I've never worked out how they've got together. So I was doing a wedding the other week for a guy called Collier, who'd done a performance piece for Trix at the Sunday Arts Club. Turned up there, and who was playing in the band but Loz. So, what are you doing here? So I want to do the photos. She said, oh, I'm part of the band. So it's a small world as well. So you start to find this sort of network of people that you can sort of tap into.
That's so true though. Like I think I got more jobs and more connections by coincidence than all the years of auditioning when I used to just audition 2, 3 times a week.
Yeah,
And you're just a number and nobody talks to you and everybody's stressed. And then you just do gigs and speak to someone and you get another gig from it. You know what I mean? I mean, I met orally at so like Sean Rivers, who that's the show I'm doing next week. He found me on Instagram and he liked my Instagram because I always tell
yeah,
everybody you have to have an online presence because a lot of people don't like Instagram because they associate like anxiety with kind of putting yourself out there. But I'm like, you have to just at least, I mean, you don't have to do Instagram, but I think it's a good platform, especially if you want to connect with people and if you just want to show what you're doing because it's really easy for people to flick through your Instagram page and get a good
yeah,
impression. You don't have to share private stuff on your Instagram and then you don't need to have any anxiety about it, you know. But
no,
he had found me on Instagram, just messaged me. I happened to be free that day. And then I sit there next to Orally, who's live painting. And I'm like, you know, it's like if I wouldn't have said yes and if I wouldn't have had Instagram, you know, it's like, and then Orly, I became resident dancer at Resonance since like
yeah,
2019. So, and then through that whole thing, you meet more people and more people and more people. And even now, like when I need a musician, I ask another musician, can you, I need a musician in Barcelona. Do you know anyone? Oh yeah, sure. I connect you. I need someone in Berlin. Do you know anyone? Yeah, yeah, I know my friend so and so. So, you know,
yeah,
like you get way more by just being there, by loving what you do. Like, you know, because like I got so many opportunities just because of hanging around at the Vortex Jazz Club. And the reason I hang around at the Vortex Jazz Club is I love what they do. Like, you know, I'm like,
yeah,
I'm there like twice a week. Not right now because they're not open that much, but like, you know, on the non-COVID circumstances, I'm there twice a week.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's the key. If you're with people that you want to be around and you enjoy what's being done, then that then leads on to other things.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's what I found. You know, I've got quite a few things lined up actually. Yeah, obviously got the thing on Wednesday, but I've also done a piece of work with. We've done two actually. One that's just coming up. I photographed an artist called Natalie Webb,
Hmm.
um, and she wanted some pictures done of a dress she'd made, which was basically made out of rucksacks, which was sort of I forget the actual concept. I think it was all the baggage you carry around. So I did those, and also she's an ambidextrous artist, so she paints with both hands at the same time, but different parts of the picture. So if you look her up and look on her Instagram, she's got some, and she's on YouTube as well. It's just amazing to watch. It's mesmerizing. And we're going to do a piece. I think it's a couple of weeks' time. We're going to get up very early in the morning and shoot. She's got a dress that's sort of 5 meters long or something, and she wants that shot on top of a hill in Docklands, sort of with the sun shining through it. And she's got a dancer that she's using to do that. So, you know, that's just from meeting. And then Vivian, I think if you look on my Instagram, you've probably seen where we take Marjorie and Malcolm, the two mannequins, out round London.
Oh yeah.
which again suits my style, because you couldn't do that and dress normally. See what I mean? You have to. It's almost that the whole thing becomes a performance.
Hmm.
not a very brand performance or anything like that, but Vivian has Malcolm and Marjorie on a bike, or I carry one of them. She's from the Colour Walk, so she dresses up quite colourfully. And we were in, I think the first one we did was on the South Bank, which we got stopped all of the time. We did one on a shot on the Millennium Bridge. I think we were there for about half an hour. And then we did one in Soho the day after the England-Scotland match. And it took us an hour to get from Raymond's Review Bar to the bottom of Carnaby Street. It's probably about 300 meters.
Oh, what? That's crazy.
Because we just kept on getting stopped and people kept on talking to us, and we're interacting with people, which just meant that you got more pictures. And then when we hit the main drag in Soho, you got all the football fans and everything. They're all out drinking. Put Malcolm on the table with a load of football fans, and there's some great shots from that. So it's and that leads on to other things. So we're trying to work out what to do with that. Actually, I've probably got about 400 or 500 pictures from all of the shoots, and trying to work out how we take that and make something, somewhat sort of art installation or something from it.
That's cool.
So for your viewers, Marjorie and Malcolm are two mannequins that have been crocheted in colourful plastic bags.
I know, I was wondering when I saw that, I was wondering what that was. But then because I was wondering if that was like at an exhibition the first time I saw it. But then when I saw more and more pictures of you posting, I realized it was some type of like public art installation that you guys just took around.
Yeah, and the nice thing is part of Marjorie and Malcolm are in high vis. So if you got them in the dark and shine lights on them, various parts of their anatomy sort of light up. Which is always entertaining. So it's that's a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think people respond to colors in London because it's always grey. Like the weather is normally bad a lot of the times. So when you like add color to the streets, I think people are really attracted to it and they start talking to you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about dressing a bit more flamboyantly from being a photographer point of view, is I don't actually have to approach that many people. Most people will approach me. Mm-hmm. which is nice. So I've automatically broken that barrier to taking a picture. And I will, if I've been stopped several times to people asking me to take their picture for them. Mm-hmm. Which is nice. That's, I think, from a photographer point of view, that's a nice place to be. Mm-hmm. Because half the battle, and especially in the early days when I first started, is and I've actually changed developed my approach to this as well. When you first go out doing street photography, you try and take candid shots. I'm going, I don't actually like doing that. I feel that's quite an intrusion. And I feel there's almost a degree of stealing on it. And this is my approach to artists as well, and people who take photos of. I give everything back to whoever I've taken a picture of.
Hmm.
So everybody I take a picture of, they get those pictures for free. What I don't want to do is even try and make or get the people to pay me to take their picture.
Hmm.
That's not what I'm really in it for, especially sort of when I'm doing people that work in sort of down Brick Lane, etc., or artists. That's to your point earlier about artists have to be poor. Unfortunately, most of them are. There are a few that aren't. But it does struck me from very early stage when I started to do this was, why do I want to even try and make money out of people that haven't actually got any anyway? I'd rather be I like the fact that potentially I can help them by doing those pictures, publishing them, getting them more exposure, etc. And that develops my photography and my art form. Hopefully, over time, somebody will then come along and say, I like what you do, I want to pay you for it.
Hmm.
So it's doing it that way rather than, I think a lot of people sort of try and earn a buck off of everybody that they meet, and I think the more you chase it, the further away it goes. If you don't chase it, then it will come to you eventually.
Yeah,
Not
maybe
only
you
for
get
me.
an exhibition at the Tate financed by one of those banks that you used to work.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
That would be awesome.
yeah, it's how you there's not much money in photography anyway these days because everybody takes a picture.
Hmm.
So you either become very commercial. And I always remember I was standing in the photographic section in Foyles a few months back, and you sort of tap into conversations. Well, I do anyway. There was this guy who was about the same age as me, and he was talking to this lady about photography, and he's saying, "Oh yeah," he said, "I started off doing some shots for this handbag manufacturer." He said it was great. They had like one style and 4 colours. He says took me an hour to do the shoot. He says by the time I finished with them, I had 16 styles and 20 colours, and he says, that was months of sitting in a studio taking pictures of handbags. He's going up, and he just knocks it on the head. I don't want to go down that route. He obviously enjoyed it to start off with, became a trudge. But I think any job becomes there's downsides to anything you do.
I think that's the nice thing about like freelancing is that you stay fresh. Like I don't feel run down. Like even from an injury perspective, I never really had much repetitive strain injury because I think I don't repeat. I think if you're in a company and you repeat the same muscle groups over and over, it's
Yeah,
much easier. But since I work like one day at a time, I always feel fresh. It's like no boredom, no injuries, not at least not from like repetition.
yeah,
And mentally, I feel like it's easier to do always something fresh because it's always something exciting. So even if you're tired, the excitement takes you through it normally.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. Mind you, the way you move, you must not. Probably don't use the same muscle for for
Yeah,
very
but
long.
that's on purpose. But sometimes when I started improvising, I stitched myself up sometimes because I just went full out. in the beginning, and
Yeah.
then 30 minutes later, I'm like, oh shit, I have to do another 15 minutes. I'm like got the stitch, and but that was the craziest thing. Did you see the mural performance with Gwen, or because I
Yes.
know
Yeah.
you watched it?
Yeah.
That was an hour 40 minutes after sitting in my room in the lockdown for over a year. That was hard. Like,
Yeah.
and it was very cold that day. But now I think I learned how to pace myself, and I think I can, like, I'm kind of in tune with my body, so I know, okay, my arm is getting too tired. You need to move away from like shaking your arm that quickly, and then I do something else. So yeah, which is obviously bad for you, but
Yeah. Yes, I can see you moving through different phases.
hmm. It also depends on the music, because I think for musicians it's the same. They they also move. They might play one idea and exhaust the one idea, and then they move on. And since I
Yeah.
mainly kind of respond to music rather than doing my own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'd never really listened to that much jazz
Yeah.
before, and I was sort of getting more in tune with it. I think jazz is one of those things you need to learn to listen to, as opposed to, oh, that's a nice piece of jazz. It's a different musical concept. You see what I mean? It's understanding it as much as anything. And the more I've watched um, the musicians play at the various things that we've done, I've become to understand it more.
Mhm.
So it's quite interesting. Mind you, I did find it funny at the 100 Years Gallery on Claire's performance that you had I forgot who was playing. The guy in the middle, what was he playing?
Bass clarinet?
Yes, he was playing the clarinet, wasn't he? And the cue for to stop was the light going out on the ceiling,
Hmm.
and the other two musicians and Claire completely missed that the light had gone out, and he's desperately looking backwards and forwards to go, we've got to stop, guys. To stop. How do I get them to stop? I think it overran by about 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because by that time shoot. It seems strange, but actually taking pictures, or the way I take pictures anyway, is actually quite physical,
Hmm.
because you might be sitting down or anything, but I tend to bend and hold positions, etc. So I'm always, one, I'm looking through the camera, seeing what's going on, but two, I'm continually shooting. And to your point about getting tired, I saw the light go out and I'm thinking, great, stop. And then going on 5 more minutes, I'm thinking, I've got to keep going. I'm done. I'm absolutely done at this point. So yeah, I enjoy doing those events and watching those. But yeah, I think somebody the other day said, "Oh, how long can you shoot for?" I think my record for shooting is 11 hours.
Wow.
So I did a rowing regatta at Eton Dorney, which is where they had the Olympics,
Hmm.
and it was a schools event, and I forget how many races they had, hundreds and hundreds. But I was on my feet. I think I sat down for 30 minutes in 11 hours. The rest of the time was getting from one boat to the next and taking pictures. So you sort of get used to it. And it's a bit like you as a dancer. You have to be in shape. And if I haven't done any photos for several weeks, I have to, and I know I've got something coming up, I have to go out and do a day's shooting. One, to get my eye in, and two, to sort of get my body ready for doing a shoot as well. It sort of goes hand in hand. You do, yeah. I think people think you pick up a camera and you take a good picture, and that's not the case. It's almost, I have to, yeah, pick up the camera. It's like before I did the one the other week. I'd spent a couple of hours going around and just shooting stuff. I tend to, if it's East London, I tend to go down Brick Lane and do photos of the paste ups and graffiti, or the street art more than the graffiti. So to clarify, there's three forms of street art. You've got paste ups, which are the sort of posters that get pasted up. You've got street art, which is sort of the stuff that Gwen does, and Luke the Pink Bear, etc. And then you've got graffiti, which is the sort of the more abstract type, and then you've got the tagging, which is the sort of old school graffiti. So I tend to go round and do the same walls. So building up as a byproduct of doing a warm up, I've then got a history of all of the different art that's gone up in the same places over a period of time. So I tend to try and make as much use of those warm ups and sort of getting the eye in, and checking out you got all the right settings before you turn up at the gig. Everything's working. You've reminded yourself how to use the camera, and make sure everything's there. And also, when you look through the viewfinder, when you start shooting, what I find is when you start shooting, you're just looking through the center, and then you warm up and you go, right, okay, I've got to move my eye around. I've got to see, got to look over the top of the camera to make sure what's going on around me. I've got to check what I'm framing up, what are the different angles I could do, and then that sort of starts to build, and then you get the good shots. But to get there, you've probably taken a couple of hundred shots beforehand just to get into that zone, as it were.
Interesting. A lot of people don't know that the walls of Shoreditch are actually art on purpose. Like, because I think Trix's art stays up for, like Trix's walls, they stay up for a few weeks only, right? Like 3, 4.
So Trix's walls are slightly different because Trix's walls owned by TFL, and I give him permission to paint on those. And actually, the Pink Bear that's up. Have you seen the Pink Bear?
I think we'll pass it.
Yes, yeah, it was around the corner from
right?
where you did. Yeah. I think that's going to be permanent.
It's cute
Because, yeah, well, there's some wedding venues around there, and a lot of people come down to have their sort of wedding pictures and stuff taken with the Pink Bear. So yeah, you've got those. So those are semi-permanent. You've got specific paste up walls down Brick Lane. So those are sort of permanent. And then you've got the bridge that goes across Brick Lane. There's a restaurant there that has, they just let people. I think they just let people paint on that wall, but it tends to go street artist, graffiti artist, street artist, graffiti artist. So it sort of alternates as to who's active in that area. During lockdown, it was quite good because pieces of art used to last like months. Now you're lucky if some of them last a week, even really good ones.
Hmm.
So they tend to disappear quite quickly, which is why I'd sort of taken, every time I go up, I do the same walls. I am going to have to buy a can of spray paint actually, and mark on the pavement exactly where I need to stand each time, because I forget which bit of the wall I'm taking. But yeah, they look good, and I've been doing it for about 18 months. And what I need to sit down and just sort of spend a day going through everything. But when I first started doing the walls, there was a lot of Trump stuff.
Hmm.
So all stuff about Trump. Then you had sort of COVID kick in and protect the NHS. Dominic Cummings piece that was big for ages. There was just loads of Dominic Cummings things. Boris has been a constant topic. Then you had Black Lives Matter, and then sort of COVID's come back a bit more. Now it's sort of those are sort of all starting to tail off, and we're sort of back to there's less. There's still, don't get me wrong, there's still political ones, and there's a guy who I must look up and find out who does. He does some quite good political ones, but those are sort of starting to tail off, and we're sort of back to more sort of mindfulness type ones, just funny ones. The guy that pastes up pictures of, he's got a graphic of a panda that he pastes up. So it's starting to change more. So I almost want to capture that period with the Trump, COVID, Black Lives Matter piece, and sort of put that together somehow as a piece.
That's interesting because you're kind of capturing world history that way, but you wouldn't know unless you archive it in like in wave photography. Because I think to you it's obvious because you've been taking pictures of these walls, but I don't know if passers-by even notice. They probably notice, but thinking back, they won't remember.
No, and I think, and the other good thing is, I know there are other photographers that go around and do what I'm doing, which is take the pictures of the walls. But to your point, I'm not sure how many have taken that view of, well, let's look at it from a political commentary point of view. Because it's interesting, you'd have thought that things like the Black Lives Matter, they stayed for quite a while, but I think without exception, I think every single one of them has gone now. The big ones that were done anyway. I think there are still a couple of paste ups, but not as many. So it's interesting to see how long things stay for. It's been an interesting period. I think it's one of those things. I was really annoyed with COVID to start off with, because I thought I'm just breaking into doing photos and getting invited to stuff. But actually, in hindsight, I look at it and go, actually, whilst it probably slowed me down initially, it's in the long term, it's probably sped me up as well. Because whilst there would have been more going on, I don't think people had pre-COVID had time to make all of the connections. I think COVID has slowed things down and made people more appreciative of making connections with people and slowing our lives down and having a look at it in a different way.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's true. Because he had time to think.
Yeah.
And I think there was so much information coming from the outside that you couldn't surrender. You actually had to think critically.
Yeah.
Because it was hard to accept so many different opinions at the same time, so you had to you were forced to think your own thoughts about it and life.
Yeah. And I
Even
think that's
like COVID got me interested in personal finance. Like as a poor artist, I I didn't even have the imagination that dancers can, invest and things like that. And then I'm like, what? Like if I would have done the same thing I'm doing now, like, like save every like a certain percentage, invest it, I'd be balling right now. I wouldn't even have an issue during COVID.
yeah.
It's funny how the stigma of your job might just hold you back just because you're lacking the imagination that it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
what everybody tells you to be.
Yeah. Because I think there's, on that sort of side of things, and I think that I see various things where they're trying to encourage more people from different backgrounds into the city. There's almost this crossover
Mm-hmm.
Of finance into art and art, etc., into the city. So one of the things that I think it sort of graphically explained that sort of shows it is if you walk up Bishopsgate towards Shoreditch, once you get to sort of Liverpool Street, you've got the city on the left hand side, and you've got the art world on the right hand side. For their closeness and how much they interact with one another, apart from people going and getting their lunch, they hardly interact at all. So, but they're, they could be 100 miles apart for the fact, but it's
Just across the street.
It's across the street. There is a different world across the street, but it's still people that still have the same needs and wants, etc. But it's almost the case of, and this is something that I want to work on, and this is sort of a byproduct of doing the photography and working in the city for so long, is how can I introduce those people to one another?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be an interesting evening to bring a load of finance types and a lot of artistic types together.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, that will be partially done when we have this photo exhibition in September. So, which I'm quite looking forward to, because it will break I may never work in the city again after it.
You don't know.
Sorry?
You don't know.
No. But,
maybe they give you the top office so you have better light for pictures.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, I don't mind what the outcome is.
Mm.
What my the Fiona, the photographer, she took a picture on the 10th floor of Broadgate on an completely empty floor with the light streaming in. I'm wearing got a pair of 1950s turn-up jeans, yellow DMs, yellow satin blouse, and a yellow beret, which couldn't be further from what I wear as in the city. And that will come together, and there will be people there that I know that will see that, and she's asked that everybody should taken a photo of turns up in what they were wearing for the shoot. So that will challenge a lot of people's perceptions, both of me and what's acceptable, etc. So it'd be interesting to see what the outcome of that is.
Yeah, I feel like this whole conversation is almost worth a documentary. It's like escaping the city.
Yes, yeah,
It's
yeah. I
like
think that,
watching the
yeah,
concierge having a heart attack because somebody walks in with a yellow suit instead of a grey one.
yeah, and you know, the last contract I had, um, I was working sort of 6.5 days a week to get everything done for the project I was working on, and it nearly killed me.
Mhm.
I mean, really, I mean, I was done when the project finished. I was completely shredded, and I think that's where you have to balance that up against what you want to do, and then again, well, if you think about it, if you nearly kill yourself doing a job, one, does it matter? But two, does it matter what you do? Does it matter how far you push the boundaries? So, I've had a couple of comments on our address, where it just looks silly, and people laugh, and you go, well, okay, but does that matter?
Yeah,
Does it actually matter to me that 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 I've made somebody smile or somebody laugh? You know that it doesn't impact me.
mhm,
Their faults aren't my faults. So it, um, you know, I'm not going to go hungry anytime soon. I'm not going to die because of it or anything like that. So
yeah.
it's the ability to push that.
That's amazing. It's so true though. I think everybody worries too much about what other people might think about what they do, and it limits them a lot. Like it
Yeah,
limits their own happiness. It doesn't limit the other person that might not like what you wear or what you do. It limits you. You're the one who's suffering
yeah.
if you don't do what you love.
And I found on the flip side, there's a negative hasn't been that much, but on the positive, I shared I shared my sort of more colourful Instagram with the legal counsel from the company I just previously worked with, because I thought she'd guessed, because she was the one that introduced me to this photographer,
Mhm.
um, and she hadn't completely gone over. Um, so so I said, because I said, oh, I'm doing the photo, but she didn't know what it looked like. And I said, well, do you want to see my Instagram account, or do you want to see my other Instagram account? She said, oh yeah, I'll look at it when I get home. And then she just messaged me. She just went, wow, I'm blown away. It's fantastic. So I think there will be a polarization of opinion. I think some people will not, hate would be too much of overstating it, but there might be some of those, but people will go, no, that's not for me, and other people just go, well, why not?
Mhm.
Why not? And I shared it with my brother and um, my niece the other day, and my niece I had a call with her after she'd seen it, and um, she was brilliant. And she said, and this is the interesting thing, and a couple of people have said this to me, either when I've been talking about photography or about dressing up. She says, you come alive when you talk about photography or you talk about dressing, etc. You just come alive and you just look so happy. And that's what she said, which was really nice. Yeah, and I think that's the key is if you can talk about something and that makes you light up, that's probably the thing that you should be doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you don't light up when you talk about the main thing that you're doing in life, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
So, but it's it's just good to do, and I haven't felt as this relaxed in years.
Mhm.
So my sister-in-law did make a cutting comment though. She went, and sort of jokingly, she went, "He looks French." I said, "Oh, harsh." So, but yeah. So
Oh, that's amazing. That's such an inspiring story. It's so funny for
yeah,
me to know this because I never knew you as anything else but your liberated version of yourself.
yeah, yeah. You've never seen the staid and boring um, version.
I mean, I saw your LinkedIn profile picture like 2 days ago when I friended you on LinkedIn, but that was all I know. That was the only thing I know about your your
I
great
would,
identity.
yeah. It might be worth putting that. I'll send you two pictures. I'll send you the LinkedIn one and a more lively one, and go, this is the same person. So yes, because I lost quite a bit of hair since I had that one done, LinkedIn one. But yeah, it's been brilliant running through everything with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm gonna link all of Chris's information in these box below, so you can check out his stuff.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.